So you're moving to Northern Virginia and you're wondering, should I buy a house or should I rent? And I know a lot has to be going through your mind right now, like, hey, I would love to learn the area before I buy a home. And what are the benefits of buying a home versus renting? Well, guess what? In this week's video, I'm gonna share with you the pros and cons of buying a house versus renting. And make sure you stay to the end of the video because I'm gonna share with you a real world financial example that'll show you the benefit of buying versus renting. And we're getting started right now. Boom! Hey everybody, it's David, your favorite realtor. As always, it's another beautiful day right here in Northern Virginia. And if it's your first time here on my channel, please consider subscribing because every week I release videos about living, working, playing, pros and cons, top neighborhoods, cost of living, basically everything that you need to know about living right here in Northern Virginia. So because of all the videos that I make about living in Northern Virginia, I get calls, texts, emails almost every single day from folks just like you who are moving to or relocating to Northern Virginia, and I absolutely love it. So if you're thinking about moving to the area, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, whatever you got to do to get a hold of me, I got your back when you're moving to Northern Virginia. The pros and cons of buying a home versus renting a home when you're moving to Northern Virginia. This is hands down probably the number one question I get when folks reach out to me who are relocating to Northern Virginia from basically all over the world. Now, I've addressed this question in previous videos, but I decided I need to really dedicate a whole video to this topic because there's so many variables and factors, and everybody's position is gonna be a lot different from another person. So I'll give you the layout of how this video is gonna work. First, I'll go over some factors that you really need to take into consideration whether you're gonna rent or buy. Now, some of these will definitely be deal breakers, or they'll definitely sway you to either renting or buying. And then I'll go over the pros and cons of each, of renting and buying, because just like everything in life, there's gonna be pros and cons to everything. And then at the end of the video, I'm gonna give you a real world financial example that'll show you the benefit of buying versus renting, and you'll be able to see the numbers, and then hopefully that'll make you realize, hey, it really makes sense to go in this direction. So let's get it started right now with some of the first thing that you need to take into consideration whether you want to buy or rent, and that's gonna be your budget. This is actually probably the number one thing. If you don't have any cash for down payment or closing costs, guess what? You have to rent. There's just no way around it. There's no zero down loan programs unless you're a veteran. But you're gonna need, if anything, you're gonna need money for the down payment. So if you're a little light in the cash, I would highly recommend you rent for a year, save some money for the down payment and closing costs, and maybe buy next year. Now, the second thing to take into consideration, that's gonna be your timing. If you're relocating to Northern Virginia, let's say from California, for example, for work, and you're only gonna be here for 1 year to work, guess what? I recommend you just rent, because you're only here short term, unless you want an investment property in the future. But if you're only here for a year and you end up buying and you look to sell just 1 year later, chances are you will not make a profit. You may actually take a loss because when you sell a house, you have fees and taxes you have to pay. So like I said, if you're here for a year, I highly recommend you just end up renting. Now, another huge factor is gonna be historically low interest rates that we're seeing right now. As of me filming this video, they're like in the high 2s, low 3s, which is hands down the best they've ever been. Yeah, they have risen slightly since early in the year, but it's a huge difference when you have a lower interest rate because that makes your payment so much lower. In fact, when I bought my home about 2.5 years ago, my interest rate was 4.25, if my memory serves me correct. I refinanced earlier this year down to 2.75, and that saved me $300 a month. I don't know about you, I'll take that savings every day of the week. So that's kind of what's really spiked this big, crazy seller's market, because so many buyers want to take advantage of the historically low interest rates. Another factor to consider, and this is something I get literally every single day when folks are relocating to Northern Virginia, they always say, hey David, I don't want to commit to the area because I don't know the area, so I'll probably just end up renting, learn the area, and then buy. And that totally makes sense in theory, but guess what? If you're renting, guess what? You're committing just as much, because a rental, long-term rentals can be anywhere from 1 to 2 years, and guess what? You're 100% locked into that area. If you buy a house, you can sell in a year, or you can sell in 2 years. So literally, it's the exact same commitment to an area, regardless if you're renting or buying. Now, the exception to this rule is, and this is actually something I recommend to a lot of my relocation clients, is go for the short-term lease, maybe a 3 to 6 month lease. It's kind of the best of both worlds. You're not committed to an area. You can kind of learn the lay of the land of Northern Virginia, so that way you can find a house in the area that you really want, and then you're not wasting a whole 1 or 2 years worth of rent down the drain. Now, hands down, probably the biggest factor that you need to consider when you're trying to decide between renting and buying, and that's gonna be the rate of appreciation. Homes this year compared to 2020 here in Loudoun County are 12% higher, just compared to 1 year ago. So what that means is, if you bought a $600,000 house last year, guess what? It's worth 12% more now this year. So that would be, on a $600,000 house, $72,000 of appreciation, real money in your pocket. So you really got to consider that. So let's say, now I'll be very quite frank, it's not 12% every year. Kind of COVID's kind of really increased the demand for housing. But historically here in Northern Virginia, it's been 4 to 6% appreciation every single year. So we'll just go with that number. We'll call it 5%. So let's say that $600,000 house you really want it, you love it, but you decide to rent for a year. Well, guess what? That exact same house is gonna be 5% higher. Let's say you rent for 2 years. Now that house is gonna be 10% more expensive. Not to mention you've been wasting money on rent these past 1 or 2 years. So it's almost a double loss. So if you have the means to buy a house, that's why I would highly suggest you go for buying a house compared to renting. Now on to the pros and cons of renting a house versus buying. So yes, there are some pros to renting a house. Now the hands down probably the best pro to renting versus buying is your rent payment historically most likely will be less than a mortgage for a similar type of house. So let's take a $600,000 townhouse for example, versus renting that exact same house. Generally it's gonna be maybe $100, $200, $300, $400 less expensive per month to rent that property as opposed to actually buying it. So this will definitely save you on your monthly nut. So this is probably the best pro of renting, is that it costs you a lot less money out of pocket monthly. Now the next pro of renting a house is you don't have to worry about any repairs. If the dishwasher breaks or the HVAC system breaks, it's not on you. You don't have to go and fork out $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to get that fixed. Guess what? That is on the landlord. It is their responsibility to fix that. So that's a huge pro of renting, is you don't have to worry about fixing or any maintenance issues like that. Now the next pro of renting is you actually get to learn the area before you end up buying. Now, disclaimer, it's only a pro if you do a short-term lease, like 3 to 6 months. Like I said earlier in this video, this is something I really recommend to my clients who are relocating the area. Short-term lease, 3 to 6 months, get to learn the lay of the land, and you're not wasting 12 to 24 months worth of rent down the toilet. So this can be a huge pro, learning the area, then you get to buy. Now off to the cons of renting a house. And this is something you really don't think about until you actually rent the house, is you cannot customize it. So if you rent a house for a year or 2 years and you hate that they have white appliances, but you really love stainless steel, guess what? You can't change them. Or if you it has carpet throughout, but you really want hardwood, guess what? You can't change it. The house you rent, it stays as is until you're out. So there's zero customization. And if you're anything like me, I love to customize houses. When I bought my condo a few years ago, the kitchen was a 0, but I was able to make it my own. You know, new countertops, backsplash, beautiful appliances, new flooring, and now the kitchen is exactly the way I want it. But had I rented my condo instead of buying it, I would have been stuck with that ugly kitchen. So this is one of the biggest cons of renting, is you cannot customize the house. Another con of renting is you're making that investor rich. You're paying his mortgage, paying down his principal. Maybe he's even making cash flow off you. Basically, you're putting his kids through college, making that investor rich. So a big con of renting is you're not putting money back in your own pocket, you're putting money into somebody else's pocket. And another con of renting is once your lease is up, you got nothing to show for it. You turn your keys in, done. All you do is have memories of living in someone else's house. No equity, no asset to sell. So that's a huge con of renting, is literally you have nothing to show for it at the end. Now on to the pros of buying a house. And hands down, the number one reason why you should buy a house versus renting is that you own an appreciating asset. So every single year, your house is going up in value. 3%, 5%, 6%, 5%. And of course, last year, 12%. That is equity. That is wealth building money in your pocket. So hands down, this is why you need to buy an appreciating asset that you own for as long as you want. Another huge pro of buying a house So let's say you bought that $500,000 townhouse and it's 2 years later and you're like, hey David, I'm ready to upsize, I need a bigger house, got a family, or I just hate this area, I want to move somewhere else. Well, guess what? Now you have an asset, now you have some equity. You can either sell that house and leverage the money from this house to buy your next house, use that for the down payment. So it makes buying your second house so much easier, at least money out of your pocket. Or you turn your first house into an investment property. You have someone else pay your principal down. Maybe you cash flow on that property. So it's a win-win. Either you leverage that first house to buy your second house, or you turn the first house into an investment property. And if you're renting, you have none of those options on the table. So I'll use me as an example. I bought my condo 2 years ago. Right now, my monthly payment's $1,850 a month. That's with the condo and HOA fee, taxes, principal, insurance, all that good stuff. If I rented my condo right now, it would rent for like $2,100 a month. That is a $250,000 cash flow I would make if I rent my condo out. So I will be looking to upsize to maybe a single family about this time next year. So I'm 100% gonna keep my condo and turn it into an investment property. And now, once I turn it into an investment property, I will cash flow anywhere from $250 to maybe $350 every single month, passive income in my pocket. And guess what? I'm gonna leverage that passive income towards my new house. So it'll make my affordability in my next house so much easier. Now, had I rented 2 years ago, my lease would just end and I wouldn't have that option. So it made so much more financial sense to buy 2 years ago as opposed to renting. Another great and very underrated pro of buying a house, you can customize it to any way you like. Change the granite, change the flooring. You want a beautiful brand new Trex deck in the back. You want to add a fence. You want to add a man cave in the basement or add a cool bar. Guess what? It is your house. You can customize it to any way you like. So that's one of the best parts about owning a house is you can do anything you want in terms of customization with your house. So now let's talk about cons. And of course, like I said, everything in life, you got pros and cons. And there are definitely some cons to buying a house versus renting. And probably the biggest con is, 9 times out of 10, your monthly mortgage will be higher compared to if you rented a very similar house. So it'd be a lot more money out of your pocket on a monthly basis. So if you really care about, having your monthly nut as low as possible, then renting may be more beneficial for you. And another con of buying is repairs are 100% on you. So when the roof is gone, that replacement cost is on you. When it's the hottest day in August and your AC breaks, well, guess what? It is on you to fix it. All the maintenance, all the little repairs is on you. And those can definitely add up over time. So this is definitely one of the biggest cons of buying a house versus renting. All right, now I'm gonna give you a real world financial example, which will show you the benefits of buying versus renting. So this beautiful townhouse in Fairfax, my client just bought a month ago for $495,000. Beautiful end unit, beautiful kitchen, very nice townhouse. Now, he got an interest rate of 2.85%. That is awesome. See, he got to really take advantage of the low interest rates. Only 3% down, which is awesome. So I know a lot of people have the connotation out there like you have to put like 10, 15, 20% down. No, you can put as little as 3% down. But we're not talking about down payment in this video. So his monthly payment with all those factors involved come out to $2,450 a month. And that's with taxes, insurance, HOA, all that good stuff. Now this exact same house that he bought, let's say it was on the rental market, it would rent for $2,350. So you can see him buying it does cost a little bit more compared to if he rented his property. So it's $100 more a month owning it versus renting it. Now in this example, had my client rented this house or a very similar house paying $2,350 a month, let's say he signed a 2-year lease, which happens all the time. People sign 1 or 2 year leases all day, every day. He would have spent over $56,000 in rent. And guess what? At the end of the 2 years, he has nothing to show for it. Turns in the keys. That's it. Like I said, just has memories of living in someone else's house. Now, what's really going to happen to my client who bought the $495,000 house is, let's say we get 5% appreciation a year for the next couple of years. 100% realistic. In fact, last year we did 12%. That's not sustainable. 5% every year appreciation, 100% sustainable. So in 2 years, that'll be almost $50,000 in equity just from appreciation. Also, he's paying down on his principal every single month. Now, your mortgage payment, you pay your interest, principal, taxes, and insurance. So now your whole payment doesn't bring down your principal. So I would say, give or take, he would probably spend about, or take down his principal about $20,000. So at the end of 2 years, he would have about $70,000 worth of equity. So many options for him. He could call me and say, hey David, I want to buy a new house. I want to leverage this money from this house to pay for my down payment of my next house. Or he could turn it into an investment property, have someone else pay down his principal while his home keeps going up in value every single year. Had he rented, he's down basically $56,000, nothing to show for it. But since he bought, he literally will have $70,000 worth of equity in his pocket. This should hands down be a no-brainer why you should buy a home versus renting. So if you're relocating to Northern Virginia from another part of the country, you realistically have three options. You can buy the home virtually from your current state, and that's where I'm boots on the ground. We do a lot of video chats so you can see the houses. Everything's done electronically. The second option is you move here first and take a short-term lease, like anywhere from 30 days all the way up to 6 months. This is usually what I recommend. It's kind of the best of both worlds. You get to be boots on the ground, shopping for homes in person, while at the same time you're not wasting all that money on a rent with a long-term lease. And then your third option is you take a long-term rental, anywhere from 1 to 2 years. And this in my mind is probably the worst of the three options without a doubt. But again, everybody's situation is going to be different. And if you want to talk to me one-on-one and come up with a game plan specific for you, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me email. As you know, when you're moving to Northern Virginia, I got your back, and I'll see you on the next video.